Every year about this time, I start getting questions about when to start pepper seeds, so I thought it was time I did a video and addressed the subject. In this video, I'm going to help you figure out when to start your pepper seeds, even if you aren't in the same zone that I'm in. It's not as simple as doing an internet search and finding the date to plant. If you do an internet search, it will probably say something like 6 or 8 weeks before your last frost date, or sometimes 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost date, or something similar. If you're new to gardening or new to starting pepper seeds indoors, that can be a little confusing too. So the first thing you should know is your last frost date. I did a search for the last frost date in our area, and I found results that ranged from April 15th to May 10th, and that's a pretty wide range. What you're looking at here are some pepper seedlings that I grew several years ago. If you don't know your last frost date, you can call your local county extension office, and many times they'll have master gardeners that can help you with that information. Another great way to find out your last frost date is talk to an experienced gardener, either a neighbor, a friend, or a relative. Not only is knowing your frost date important for knowing when to plant your pepper seeds indoors, but it's also important for knowing when to put them outside. I mentioned before that one of the internet searches that I did said that my last frost date was April 15th. What you're looking at now is my garden in late April one year, so April 15th wasn't a very good date. In my opinion, pepper seedlings need at least 8 weeks of growth before you transplant them outside. But in order to get 8 weeks of growth, you need to plant the seeds so they'll come up 8 weeks before the last frost date. In general, most of the pepper seeds that I plant sprout in about 10 to 14 days, but some varieties can take 3 weeks or even longer. I personally like to give my pepper plants about 10 weeks of growing time before I transplant them outside, so in order to do that, I need to plant about 12 weeks before my last frost date. But there's one thing you should know: the earlier you plant, the larger the plants will be. So at some point, if you plant really early, you're going to have to transplant those smaller pots into larger pots. Once your growing pepper plants are in those larger pots, they're going to take up a lot more space and be a lot more work when it comes time to hardening them off or bringing them indoors and taking them back out during cold snaps. If you don't want to mess with the extra work that the larger pots require, then it might be a good idea to stick closer to 8 weeks of growing time. But if you don't mind the extra work and have plenty of room, 10 weeks of growing time or more might be for you. Before you go, let us know how many weeks of growing time you allow for your pepper seedlings. We'll see you next time.